Okay, so let's dive into this election because, wow, it's already mid-October and things are getting really interesting. We're talking super close races, voters who are, well, let's just say they're keeping us all guessing.
Yeah,
Enough political drama for like a whole TV series.
that's for sure.
But here's where this deep dive gets really cool.
Yeah.
We've got these insights from this AI we're calling P. It's been simulating a shy Trump voter. Like, what would it be like to be that person right now in this election?
Interesting. I mean, AI and politics, it's not something you see every day. I'm really interested in how AI can model how people behave, especially in something as complex as politics.
Exactly. It's not about predicting the future or anything like
Oh,
that. It's
yeah.
more like holding up a mirror to everything that's going on right now and seeing what we can learn. And P dove into some recent polls and, what people are saying online. And, well, let's just say things are interesting.
Yeah.
So P's big takeaway was basically it's anyone's race at this point.
Yeah, and historically speaking, that's not super surprising. We've had some really close elections recently, haven't we?
For sure. And P really focused on those battleground states that always seem to decide everything. Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. The Wall Street Journal poll had Trump and Harris basically tied in all of them.
Wow.
Right? And they were all within the margin of error, so it's about 4 points.
Right. And that margin of error is really important for, anyone who's following this election, because it means even little changes in people's opinions can have a huge impact. Imagine a state where a candidate is only ahead by 1%. Technically, they're basically tied.
It's like those maps where one state turns red or blue and suddenly the whole election changes.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. P noticed that even though it's close overall, there are some issues where Trump has a really clear advantage.
Yeah.
And we're talking double digits here, like a 10-point lead on the economy and a 16-point lead on border security, according to that same Wall Street Journal poll.
Yeah. And those are really important issues for his base. Those are the kind of everyday concerns that get people to actually vote. But we also know that elections are rarely decided on just one or two issues.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where it gets even more interesting. Because while Trump might be ahead on those issues, Harris is ahead on others that voters really care about, like health care, for example. She's seen as the more trustworthy candidate when it comes to health care. And then there's housing affordability, where she's also doing really well. Plus, the polls show that a lot of people feel like she cares about people like you.
And that's a really powerful thing for a candidate to have going for them, especially in a close race. That feeling of empathy and connection can really sway undecided voters or people who are just tired of all the political fighting.
Totally. And let's not forget about abortion, which has been such a big topic this election. The Wall Street Journal poll had Harris with a big lead on that issue, like 16 points.
Yeah, it really shows how divided people are on certain social issues and how those divisions show up in the polls.
Definitely. And then there's the big question mark of this whole election. Those independent voters. The ones who keep everyone guessing until the very end. Well, the poll had them split right down the middle. No clear favorite, which just makes everything even more unpredictable.
Absolutely. Independent voters have a lot of power in these close races. They often decide things at the last minute, so it's really important for the campaigns to understand what they care about, which is not an easy thing to do. It makes you wonder if anyone can really say for sure who's going to win, with so much going on.
Right. It's like we're trying to figure out a puzzle, but we don't have all the pieces.
Yeah.
And speaking of mysteries, there's this whole shy Trump voter thing that just adds a whole other layer to everything.
It is interesting how that keeps coming up even after his presidency. You'd think after being president, there wouldn't be this need to hide who you're voting for.
Right. It's not like he's some new guy on the scene. You'd think people would be totally fine saying they support him, especially if the polls say it's close. But P, our AI, who's simulating that shy Trump voter, well, P actually found some reasons why this might be happening.
Oh, really? I'm curious to hear this. What's P's take on why people might be shy about supporting Trump?
So P found this thing called social desirability bias. It's basically where people say what they think is okay to say, even if it's not really how they feel. Like they want to fit in.
Ah, yeah. You want to be agreeable. And in some groups, saying you support Trump might not exactly make you the most popular person.
Exactly. And P actually found someone on Reddit saying this exact thing. The person was like, I actually know more people who support Trump than Biden, but they never admit it publicly. It's wild.
It does make sense, though. When you think about social media and everything being out there, people might not want to risk saying who they support politically, especially if those views are seen as controversial.
Yeah. It's almost like they're afraid of being canceled for their political beliefs. which unfortunately does happen sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. We've definitely seen people facing real consequences for what they say about politics. It really makes you think about freedom of speech and how,
Yeah.
even though we have it, it doesn't mean there aren't social or professional consequences.
It's a tough situation because you want people to feel safe sharing their opinions, but you also want to know what people actually think so we can understand what's going on.
It's a tough balance for sure, and it shows how much we rely on polls to understand what people are thinking. But if people are afraid to tell the truth in those polls, then are we really getting the full picture?
It's like trying to figure out how hot a room is when half the people are hiding from the thermometer.
Exactly. And that's where I think looking at what people are saying online, like P is doing, can give us more information. By looking at online discussions, what's trending on social media, and all those other places where people share their thoughts, we can get a better understanding of what's really going on.
So it's not just about what people say in polls, but what they're saying to each other online and how they're talking about the issues.
Right. It's about reading between the lines, noticing the little things that tell us what people are worried about, what they want, and what's frustrating them. And sometimes those little hints can tell us more than any poll ever could.
It's like we need to become political detectives to really understand what's going on. But speaking of clues, P didn't just focus on the polls and what people are saying online. They actually checked out those prediction markets,
Mhm.
the ones where people bet real money on who's going to win.
Those are always interesting. They can give you some insight into where people are actually putting their money, even if it doesn't always match up with reality in the end.
Exactly. And according to P, those who are willing to take a gamble are leaning slightly towards a Trump win. Polymarket has him at 56%. Kalshi's showing 52%. And Predicted is basically a coin toss at 53% for Trump to 52% for Harris.
Interesting. But like you said, that's just one group of people, those who are comfortable putting money on the line. It doesn't mean they represent how everyone's feeling.
Totally. And P decided to sit this one out, said it's just too close to call. Which makes sense, right?
Definitely. This election is going down to the wire. I don't think anyone can say for sure what's going to happen.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah.
Well, P left us with a really interesting question. What if these polls are missing those shy Trump voters again? What does that say about how we try to understand what voters are thinking in this day and age?
It's a really important question. And it's not just about this election, it's about how we measure public opinion when things are so polarized these days. Social pressure, echo chambers, online. It's hard to get a clear picture of what people really believe. And if we don't even know what people really think, how can we bridge the divide, find common ground, and actually govern effectively?
It's like we're all speaking different languages even when we're using the same words.
Exactly. We need to have those tough conversations, even with people who see things differently. We need to listen to understand, not just to be right. And we need to remember that behind every poll number, every comment online, every single vote, there's a whole person with their own experiences, hopes, and fears.
So as we head into these last few weeks of the election, let's all try to look beyond the headlines, the polls, and what we see on social media.
Yeah.
Let's talk to each other like fellow citizens, not enemies in some political battle.
Yeah.
And let's face this election together, committed to democracy, being respectful of each other, and believing that even with all this uncertainty, we can figure things out.
Very well said. That's a great message to end on.
Some things to think about as we navigate these interesting times. Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.